My life, you see, it's always been about order. A quiet, steady rhythm. Tuesday nights were for my book club, Saturday mornings for the farmer's market, and evenings, well, evenings were for a good cup of tea and a well-researched documentary. I liked knowing what was coming, the comfort of the predictable. So when my friend Lena bubbled over the phone about a super chill get-together at her cousin's place, my internal alarm bells, usually quite vocal, were muted by her sheer enthusiasm. Lena, bless her heart, has always been the chaotic element to my calm, the bright splash of color to my muted palette. She promised it would be small, just a few close friends, a chance to unwind. I should have known better. The moment I stepped through the ornate gate of what could only be described as a mini-estate, the bass thumping against my chest was the first clue. The air, thick with the scent of chlorine and something vaguely tropical, confirmed my growing dread. This wasn't a super chill get-together. This was a full-blown, vibrant, swimwear-acquired pool party. My conservative sundress, a demure floral print that usually made me feel appropriately dressed for any daytime occasion, now felt like a giant, flashing neon sign screaming, "I don't belong here." The backyard was a kaleidoscope of bodies. There were people laughing too loudly, splashing in the glistening turquoise water, their joy almost tangible. I saw sleek one-pieces, daring bikinis, and trunks in every shade imaginable. And there I stood, clutching my small purse, a deer caught in 1,000 headlights. My cheeks, I could feel them burning a furious red. This was my personal brand of hell. "Nicole, you made it." Lena's voice cut through the din, and she materialized beside me, looking effortlessly chic in a stylish emerald green swimsuit. She gave me a quick, almost apologetic squeeze, her eyes already scanning the crowd. "Listen, I just saw Mark, I have to say hi. Be right back." And with a flash of emerald green, she was gone, swallowed by the swirling mass of humanity, leaving me utterly, irrevocably abandoned. My breath hitched. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I felt a wave of nausea. All I wanted was to turn on my heel and sprint back to my car, to the quiet sanctuary of my apartment, to my books and my tea. But the sheer audacity of making such an escape felt even more mortifying than simply enduring. I stood for a moment, paralyzed, the vibrant scene blurring at the edges. My gaze darted around, searching for an escape route, any place where I could melt into the background. My eyes landed on a small, shaded alcove near a trellis overflowing with fragrant jasmine, where a modest table laden with appetizers offered a semblance of normalcy. That was my target. I navigated the crowded patio, feeling every pair of eyes on me, though I knew logically no one probably noticed. The music pulsed, a relentless beat that seemed to mock my discomfort. Finally, I reached my haven. I grabbed a small plate, piled it with a few crackers and some cheese, less because I was hungry and more because it gave my hands something to do. I positioned myself behind a potted palm, convinced that if I just stood still enough, no one would see me. I could pretend I was a particularly well-dressed, anxious plant. This, I told myself, was simply an exercise in social endurance. I just had to get through it. And then I could go home and pretend this evening never happened. My own private, awkward witness to a world I wasn't made for. The untouched hors d'oeuvres on my plate were a testament to my desire to simply vanish. I stood there, a silent sentinel, the pulse of the party a distant thrum against my ears. My internal monologue was a chaotic symphony of self-reproach and a desperate longing for my sofa. "Just breathe, Nicole. You can do this. Just act natural." But natural felt miles away. I watched the carefree revelers, their laughter echoing, their movements fluid and uninhibited. I felt like an alien observing a ritual I couldn't comprehend, much less participate in. My modest sundress, now a symbol of my profound unsuitability for this event, felt like a costume I desperately wanted to shed. A sudden, sharp movement behind me made me jump, nearly sending my carefully balanced plate of crackers tumbling. I gasped, spinning around, my heart leaping into my throat. Standing there, A mere foot away was a woman who seemed to embody everything this party was. She was tall, with an undeniable presence that filled the small space I had claimed as my sanctuary. Her hair, a cascade of dark, rich waves, framed a face that was both striking and intriguing. There was a quiet intensity in her deep hazel eyes that seemed to absorb the ambient light, holding a knowing glint. A subtle, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips, a curve that hinted at amusement and something more. She wore a simple, dark swimsuit, but it clung to her frame with an elegance that defied the casual nature of the material. She radiated an effortless confidence, a natural grace that drew attention without seeking it. For a fleeting second, I just stared, utterly captivated and completely mortified. "Caught you," she said, her voice a low, warm murmur that somehow cut through the party's clamor. It wasn't accusatory but playful, almost conspiratorial. My cheeks, already a furious crimson, deepened in shade. I fumbled with my plate. I was just, getting something to eat. I stammered, feeling like a child caught with my hand in the cookie jar. My voice sounded thin and reedy to my own ears. She laughed softly, a husky sound that sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "I can see that. But you look like you're plotting an escape plan more than enjoying the buffet." She took a step closer, and I could catch the faint, pleasant scent of citrus and something earthy, rosemary, maybe? "Don't worry," she continued, her gaze direct, unwavering, yet devoid of judgment. "It's okay to feel a little out of your element sometimes." My mind raced, searching for a witty retort, anything to deflect her unnerving perceptiveness. Nothing came. I just wanted to disappear. "I think I should probably find my friend," I mumbled, trying to make my voice sound decisive, though my knees felt decidedly wobbly. I started to sidle away, attempting to circle around her. But she moved with an easy grace, effectively blocking my path. Her smile widened just a fraction, a knowing glint in those hazel eyes. "Oh, your friend who abandoned you? A true ally, that one." Her tone was light, teasing, yet it somehow made me feel less alone in my awkwardness. "Come on, don't go just yet. It's a waste to hide away on such a beautiful evening. What's your name, Wallflower?" "Nicole," I managed, feeling utterly exposed. "Nicole," she repeated, letting the name roll off her tongue. It sounded different when she said it. "I'm Kendall." She extended a hand, her fingers long and elegant. I hesitated for a moment, then took it. Her grip was firm, warm, and surprisingly gentle. The contact was brief, but it left a faint tingle on my skin. It's really nice to meet you, Kendall," I said, pulling my hand back almost instinctively. "But I really should be going." "Should you?" She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to an even lower, more intimate tone that seemed to bypass my ears and resonate directly in my chest. "Or do you just want an excuse to flee the scene?" Her eyes held mine, and for a long moment, the party's noise faded into a dull roar. "Tell you what, you can go, but only if you give me your number first." It wasn't a question, but a playful challenge, delivered with that confident, captivating smile. My mind short-circuited. Give her my number? A complete stranger? A bold, beautiful stranger who had just seen me at my most socially inept? My cheeks were probably the color of ripe tomatoes. The idea was absurd, but her gaze was so compelling, and I was so desperate to escape this corner, this conversation, this feeling of being utterly out of my depth. "Why?" I blurted out, then immediately wished I could retract the foolish question. Kendall laughed again, a delightful sound. "Because, Nicole, I have a feeling you're far more interesting than your current hiding spot suggests. And I'd rather not let an intriguing mystery like you just vanish into the night." Her eyes sparkled. "So, do we have a deal?" Flustered, confused, and utterly desperate to regain my personal space, I fumbled for my phone. With unsteady fingers, I quickly typed out my number, handed it to her, and watched as she swiftly inputted into her own device. "There," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Now, if you'll excuse me. Excellent, Kendall said, a triumphant smile now playing on her lips. She gave me a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Don't be a stranger, Nicole. Before she could say anything else, I turned on my heel and practically fled, not even bothering to look for Lena. I just needed to be anywhere but there, away from Kendall's unsettling gaze, away from the confusing swirl of emotions she had stirred in me. My heart was still pounding, not from fear now, but from a strange, exhilarating cocktail of embarrassment and something else I couldn't quite name. Something akin to a reluctant curiosity. The days that followed the party were a strange, unsettling blur. My meticulously planned routine felt off-kilter. Kendall's name, saved as Kendall, pool party in my phone, felt like a foreign object amidst my contacts, a jarring anomaly in my otherwise orderly digital world. I kept finding myself staring at it, my thumb hovering over the delete button, then retreating. This was just a fleeting party encounter, I told myself, a brief, awkward blip that I could easily erase from my memory, just as I could erase her from my phone. It was an anomaly, a rogue wave in the calm sea of my existence. I tried to rationalize it away. She was just being polite. Or maybe she was one of those overly friendly types who collected numbers like souvenirs. Yes, that had to be it. I busied myself with my work, meticulously organizing files, reviewing spreadsheets, attempting to reestablish the familiar rhythm of my life. But even as I focused on data, an image would flicker at the edge of my mind. The playfulness in her hazel eyes, the confident curve of her smile, the way her voice had a low, captivating quality. It was maddening. Then, 3 days after the party, a text message arrived. My phone vibrated with an unexpected intimacy, startling me out of my evening reading. Kendall, pool party. Still hiding behind potted plants, Nicole? Hope you made it home okay. My breath hitched. My heart gave a little lurch. I stared at the screen, my mind a blank. She remembered. She actually remembered. A mix of mortification and a strange, undeniable warmth bubbled within me.
I didn't respond.
I couldn't. What would I even say? Yes, I made it home and immediately burrowed under a blanket of self-consciousness. Another day passed. And then another text. Kendall, pool party. Thought of you today. Saw a really intense documentary on ancient civilizations. Figured you'd appreciate the research. This one surprised me. It was so specific, so me. How did she know? I hadn't talked about my preferences for documentaries or my fascination with history. A faint, secret smile tugged at the corner of my lips, a reaction I quickly suppressed. She was observant, I had to give her that. Still, I resisted the urge to reply. This was uncharted territory, and my compass was spinning wildly. The messages continued, not relentless, but thoughtful, appearing every other day or so. Little observations, a link to an interesting article, a funny anecdote about her week. Each one was light, witty, and surprisingly genuine. Each one chipped away at my resolve. I found myself anticipating them, a tiny spark of curiosity igniting within me. My thumb would hover, typing out a reply in my head, then deleting it before it could become a reality. I was in a silent battle with myself, my ingrained caution wrestling with a burgeoning, unfamiliar pull. Finally, a text arrived that was less an observation and more of an invitation. Kendall, pool party. I'm grabbing coffee at the Daily Grind on Friday morning. Super low-key. No pool, no loud music, promise.
Just coffee.
Thought you might actually enjoy that. My internal alarm bells, once so loud, were now barely a whisper. She was right. Coffee. Quiet. That was my speed. And super low-key, she emphasized. It felt like she was deliberately crafting an environment for me, an attempt to bridge the chasm between our two worlds. I stared at the message, the invitation hanging in the air. My mind supplied 1,000 reasons to say no. I was busy, I had other plans, I didn't. It was too soon, it was too everything. But a stronger, more insistent voice spoke up. A voice laced with curiosity, a tiny thread of yearning. She was persistent, yes, but not pushy. There was a genuine warmth in her messages, an openness that was slowly disarming me. And frankly, my own stubborn refusal was starting to feel a little childish. I took a deep breath. It's just coffee, Nicole. Just to be civil. To close the chapter, I typed out a short, concise reply. Nicole, Friday morning works. What time? I hit send before I could second-guess myself. A strange mix of relief and nervous anticipation washed over me. The chapter wasn't closing, it was just beginning a new, unexpected paragraph. The daily grind was exactly as I pictured, cozy, with the rich aroma of roasted beans filling the air and the gentle hum of conversation providing a comforting backdrop. I arrived a few minutes early, choosing a discreet table in the corner, allowing myself time to settle my nerves. My heart was doing a strange flutter kick in my chest, a mixture of apprehension and an undeniable flicker of anticipation. Kendall walked in a few minutes later, and the room seemed to brighten, or perhaps it was just my perception. She wore dark jeans and a simple, fitted sweater the color of warm honey, her hair pulled back loosely. It was a casual look, yet she carried it with an innate elegance. She spotted me immediately, her hazel eyes lighting up, that subtle, captivating smile playing on her lips. "Nicole," she said, her voice soft, as she approached the table. "You came. I wasn't entirely sure you would." There was no judgment in her tone, just a hint of genuine pleasure. "You said no loud music," I replied, a small, wry smile gracing my own lips. It felt strange to be so unguarded, even for a moment, and coffee is more my speed. We ordered our drinks, and I found myself observing Kendall with a renewed intensity. Up close, without the chaotic backdrop of the party, her features were even more striking. The subtle arch of her brow, the way her eyes would crinkle at the corners when she smiled, the animated expressions that brought her face to life when she spoke of something she cared about. Her confident posture, the way she held herself, was a stark contrast to my own tendency to shrink into myself. And yet, she made me feel surprisingly comfortable. She started by asking about my work, my interests, and she listened, truly listened, with an attentiveness that was disarming. She asked insightful questions that prompted me to share more about myself than I usually would, drawing out details about my passion for forgotten histories and my quiet fascination with obscure scientific theories. I found myself talking, actually talking, without the usual internal censor dictating every word. There were moments when her hand would briefly rest on my arm, a light touch of emphasis when she was making a point or sharing an idea that excited her. Each time, a peculiar warmth would spread through me, a sensation that was both novel and not entirely unwelcome. It was a gentle connection, a momentary bridge. "You know," Kendall mused, leaning back in her chair, a thoughtful expression on her face. "For someone who seemed so determined to be invisible at that party, you have a surprising depth." "I like that." My cheeks flushed again, a familiar heat rising. I'm not really a party person," I admitted, my voice softer than I intended. "I prefer quiet." "And there's nothing wrong with that," she said, her gaze unwavering, yet kind. "The world needs quiet observers, Nicole. They often see the most." Her words made me feel, for the first time, not judged for my quiet nature, but appreciated. I felt a profound confusion swirling within me. Kendall was so unlike anyone I had ever encountered. She was bold, expressive, and seemed utterly unafraid to be herself. Her energy was infectious, drawing me out of my shell in a way no one ever had. I felt an unfamiliar pull, a sense of being out of my depth, yet also a strange, quiet thrill. My carefully constructed walls, the ones I had spent years building around myself, began to show hairline fractures. The order I cherished was being subtly, beautifully disrupted. The hour flew by, feeling like mere minutes. As we gathered our things, a comfortable silence fell between us. Kendall's gaze met mine, and her smile was softer, tinged with a clear and gentle interest. "I really enjoyed this, Nicole," she said, her voice sincere. "I hope we can do it again soon. Perhaps something even less chaotic than coffee next time? Maybe a museum visit?" I hear there's a fascinating exhibit on ancient artifacts downtown. The suggestion was perfectly tailored to my interests. She really had been listening. I found myself nodding, a genuine smile forming on my lips, a response that was entirely unforced. "I'd like that, Kendall," I said, surprised by the ease with which the words came out. As we parted ways, walking out into the bright afternoon, I felt a swirling vortex of emotions, curiosity, apprehension, and a nascent sense of anticipation. The encounter had left a mark, an indelible impression that echoed in my thoughts long after she was out of sight. My world, I realized, was already shifting. The structured routine of my life, once a comforting anchor, now felt agitated. My mind, usually a neatly filed cabinet of thoughts, was now a jumble of shifting scenes, all featuring Kendall. Her smile, her laugh, the gentle brush of her hand. I found myself replaying moments from our coffee meeting, dissecting her words, her expressions, a disorienting shift from my usual meticulous self-analysis. My usual meticulous nature felt less about order and more about an attempt to understand this new, intriguing variable. I'd find myself staring blankly at my computer screen, a spreadsheet open, while my thoughts drifted to the upcoming museum visit. The idea of spending more time with Kendall, not just in the impersonal space of a coffee shop but surrounded by the quiet reverence of ancient history, sparked a quiet thrill. But this thrill was intertwined with a persistent hum of apprehension. This was new territory, and new territory always brought a nervous energy. Kendall, true to her word, reached out a few days later, proposing our museum trip. She suggested an evening viewing, promising a quieter, more intimate experience. She framed it as an opportunity to truly delve into our shared interest without the daytime crowds. Her thoughtfulness, the way she tailored her suggestions to my preferences, continued to disarm me. It wasn't about grand gestures. It was about genuine consideration. Despite my lingering apprehension, I found myself agreeing almost immediately. A new, compelling curiosity about Kendall and this unfamiliar path was overriding my natural caution. It was a subtle pull, not a forceful shove, but strong enough to keep me moving forward. I was drawn to the unknown, a sensation that was both exhilarating and profoundly unsettling for someone who valued the known. A fleeting memory surfaced unbidden, like a whisper from the past. I was in college, an art history class, passionately defending a non-traditional interpretation of a Renaissance painting. The professor, a staunch traditionalist, had publicly dismissed my ideas with a condescending smile. "Stick to the established narratives, Ms. Hayes," he'd said, his words painting my enthusiasm as naive. That incident had, in its own quiet way, reinforced my conservative instincts, teaching me to guard my unconventional thoughts, to stay within the lines. It was a small moment, easily forgotten, but its echo had shaped a part of me, making me wary of stepping too far outside expected boundaries. This ingrained fear, I realized, was at the root of my guarded nature. And now, Kendall, with her unwavering gaze and her genuine interest in my quiet observations, was slowly, gently, dissolving those old defenses. I spent the next few days preparing for the museum, not just mentally but physically. I chose my outfit carefully, something smart yet comfortable. I even did a quick refresh on a few historical periods, just in case. It felt almost like preparing for an exam, but one I was strangely excited to take. The thought of walking through those quiet halls with Kendall, sharing insights, perhaps even discovering something new together, filled me with a quiet anticipation. My world, once so contained, was steadily, delicately expanding. The museum, bathed in the soft, diffused light of the evening, felt like a sacred space. The hushed reverence of the few other patrons created an atmosphere of intimacy I rarely experienced. Kendall, in a stylish charcoal pantsuit, moved through the exhibits with an easy grace, her observations insightful, her questions thought-provoking. She drew me into conversations about the artifacts, pointing out details I might have missed, her enthusiasm infectious. We moved from room to room, a bubble of shared interest forming around us, the world outside fading into insignificance. It was, in a word, perfect. Afterward, she suggested a small, curated dinner at a friend's apartment, A quiet gathering, she promised, with just a few close, like-minded people. The idea, after the stimulating intellectual journey of the museum, felt like a natural extension of our evening. The apartment was cozy, filled with warm light and the low murmur of conversation. The friends were welcoming, and the atmosphere was one of comfortable intimacy, a stark contrast to Lena's raucous pool party. Kendall, ever the gracious host, made sure I felt included, seamlessly weaving me into discussions, drawing out my opinions, and amplifying my quieter contributions. Her charm was effortless, a gentle current that pulled everyone into her orbit. I found myself laughing more freely than usual, my usual inhibitions slowly dissolving under the combined influence of good company, stimulating conversation, and perhaps the subtle, comforting presence of Kendall herself. Glasses were refilled, toasts were made, and I found myself drinking more freely than usual. Each sip of wine seemed to soften the edges of my self-consciousness, allowing me to relax into the moment. Kendall was beside me, her knee occasionally brushing mine under the table, a fleeting contact that felt both accidental and deeply significant. Her easy laughter, her gentle nudges to share my thoughts, all contributed to a feeling of warmth, of belonging. As the night wore on, fatigue settled in, the result of a day filled with new sights and lively talk. When Kendall noticed my yawn, she offered a quiet out. "It's getting late. I live nearby, if you want to crash on my couch for the night instead of fighting traffic." No pressure, of course. The offer felt kind, not pushy, and I agreed, grateful for the reprieve from late-night driving. Her apartment was as thoughtful as she was, soft lighting, a shelf lined with history books, some of which I'd read, and a couch draped in a woolen blanket. She fetched me a glass of water, then retreated to her bedroom, leaving me to settle in. I fell asleep quickly, lulled by the quiet of the space. The morning light, thin and watery, filtered through a window I didn't recognize. My eyes fluttered open, a throbbing behind them announcing its presence with a dull ache. My head felt heavy, my tongue thick. I lay still for a moment, trying to orient myself. The couch was soft, unfamiliar. The scent of lavender and something distinctly clean filled the air, not my usual familiar linen spray. A wave of mild disorientation washed over me, followed by a faint flush of embarrassment. This wasn't my apartment. I'd fallen asleep on Kendall's couch. My mind pieced together the previous night clearly now, the museum, the dinner, the kind offer to stay over. There was no confusion, no dread, just a quiet awkwardness at having overstayed my unspoken welcome. I cautiously pushed myself up, my muscles protesting slightly from the couch's firmness. A quick glance confirmed my sundress was folded neatly on a nearby armchair, and a pair of Kendall's spare socks sat beside it, a small, thoughtful touch. I smiled, then felt a twinge of self-consciousness. I'd meant to leave early, to avoid imposing. I heard a soft movement from the kitchen, the clink of a mug, a quiet hum. Kendall's presence, calm and unassuming, settled any lingering nerves. I dressed slowly, folding the blanket and placing it back on the couch, then made my way toward the sound of her humming. She looked up as I entered, a mug of coffee in hand. "Morning," she said, her smile soft. "I made extra, if you want some. Black, like you mentioned at the cafe." Her attention to detail made my chest feel light. "I should probably go," I said, even as I found myself stepping closer to the coffee. "I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," she said, handing me the mug. The warmth seeped into my palms, chasing away the morning chill.
Stay.
"We can talk about the museum exhibit more. I wanted to ask your thoughts on that Mesopotamian tablet." But the moment felt fragile, and my old instincts kicked in, the urge to retreat before things felt too real. I shook my head, sipping the coffee, perfect, just as I liked it. "Maybe another time. I need to get back to my place, sort some things out." Kendall nodded, no trace of disappointment in her eyes. "Of course. Whenever you're ready." She walked me to the door, and as I turned to leave, she hesitated, then said, "I had a really good time yesterday. With you." "Me too," I replied, and for the first time in weeks, the words felt unforced. The days that followed were a balance of solitude and quiet reflection. I didn't retreat into my apartment entirely, but I did take time to process, The way Kendall made me feel seen, the ease of our conversations, the yet comforting warmth of being around her. My phone buzzed with her messages, but they were never urgent. A link to an article about the museum's tablet exhibit, a note saying she'd passed a bookstore, and thought of a novel I'd mentioned. I replied to these, short at first, then longer, as the awkwardness of the morning faded. I grappled with small doubts, not about Kendall, but about myself. Could I really let go of the rigid routines that had defined me for so long? Could I embrace something new, even if it felt a little scary? Society's quiet expectations still lingered, but they felt lighter now, less like rules and more like background noise. Kendall's patience was unwavering. When I finally texted her, asking if we could meet, she replied within minutes. "Anytime, Nicole. Just tell me where." We met at a small, unassuming cafe, far from any of our usual haunts. I chose a corner table, my back to the wall, needing to feel anchored. When Kendall walked in, her gaze met mine, and there was no judgment, only a gentle understanding. She sat opposite me, her hands folded on the table, offering a quiet space for me to speak. "Kendall," I started, my voice barely a whisper, the words feeling foreign and heavy on my tongue. I need to say, I'm confused. About how I feel. About us." My gaze darted around the cafe, unable to meet her steady eyes. I've never connected with someone like this before. Not in this way. She nodded, patiently. "I understand. And I'm sorry if I ever made you feel rushed. That was never my intention. I just like being around you." Her voice was soft, sincere, devoid of any expectation.
Her honesty disarmed me.
"It's not you," I confessed, forcing myself to meet her eyes. "It's me. I'm used to being alone, to keeping things ordered. This, whatever this is, feels messy. But not bad messy. Just new." Kendall's expression remained gentle, unwavering. "New isn't a bad thing, Nicole. It's just untested. And we can take it slow. Whatever pace feels right for you." She reached across the table, her hand gently covering mine. Her touch was warm, reassuring, a simple gesture of support. "I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you want me to." Her calm acceptance was a balm to my tangled emotions. I felt tears prick at my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. It was okay to be unsure. It was okay to take time. "I don't want you to go," I said, the words quiet but clear. In that moment, charged with unspoken emotions, with the raw vulnerability of my confession and the quiet strength of her reassurance, our lips met. It was a soft, hesitant contact, not an explosion of passion, but a quiet, profound understanding, a gentle acknowledgement of the connection we both felt. It was acceptance, a quiet promise of patience, a delicate blossoming of something new and tender. It signified a quiet letting go, a step toward the unknown. As we parted, a deep breath shuddered through me. I looked at Kendall, truly looked at her, and a different kind of calm settled over me. One that wasn't about order, but about genuine connection. Nicole, the woman who cherished predictability, who guarded her emotions with an ironclad resolve, was consciously allowing herself to navigate this new, unknown path. The fear was still there, a faint echo, but it was now overshadowed by a burgeoning sense of hope and a quiet, undeniable affection. The path ahead wasn't always smooth, but it was ours, forged step by hesitant, then confident, step. Our relationship blossomed, an unexpected bloom in the carefully tended garden of my life. The initial confusion and apprehension slowly, steadily, gave way to a deep emotional intimacy, a mutual support that felt both grounding and liberating. We learned each other's rhythms, understood each other's silences, and celebrated each other's small triumphs. Our conversations moved beyond casual interest to a profound sharing of dreams, fears, and hopes. Kendall was my anchor and my sail. Her unwavering acceptance empowered me to shed the old inhibitions that had tethered me for so long. I found myself becoming more open, more confident, more authentically myself. The conservative shell I had built around my heart, so carefully maintained, slowly cracked and peeled away, revealing a vibrant, resilient core I hadn't known existed. I started expressing my opinions more freely, even in professional settings, no longer fearing judgment. My colleagues, I noticed, seemed to perceive a subtle, positive shift in my demeanor. There were subtle societal pressures, of course. Raised eyebrows from distant relatives, quiet assumptions from acquaintances. But these moments, rather than diminishing us, only served to strengthen our bond. They were external echoes of the internal battles I had already fought and, with Kendall's quiet strength beside me, had won. Each shared glance, each knowing smile in the face of unspoken scrutiny, reinforced our commitment to each other, a silent declaration of our care. Looking back, it's almost impossible to recognize the woman I was before Kendall. The meticulous routines, the careful avoidance of anything that might disrupt my equilibrium, they all seem like artifacts of a past life. The greatest healing, I realized, came not just from Kendall's unwavering care and understanding, but from allowing myself to be vulnerable, to lean into the discomfort, and to embrace the unexpected turns life presented. It was in shedding my self-imposed limitations that I truly began to live. We found solace in shared evenings of quiet reading, in long walks through city parks, and in spirited discussions over countless cups of coffee. Kendall continued to introduce me to new experiences, gently pushing me out of my comfort zone, always ensuring I felt safe and supported. I, in turn, offered her the grounding stability she sometimes craved amidst her own vibrant, outward-facing life. We built a life together, not by abandoning our individual selves, but by weaving our separate threads into a stronger, more beautiful tapestry. My worldview, once so narrow and carefully defined, had expanded to encompass a universe of possibilities. Connection, I now understood, wasn't about fitting into preconceived notions, but about finding an undeniable resonance with another soul, regardless of form or expectation. It was about seeing and being seen, caring and being cared for, in a way that truly nourished the spirit. Our story, for me, is a testament to the unexpected connections that can alter the very fabric of one's existence. It's a journey from guarded silence to profound self-discovery, fueled by a bond that found me in the most unlikely of places. My life, once dictated by careful order, now flows with a beautiful, unpredictable grace. And as I look at Kendall, at the quiet strength in her eyes, I know that this is just the beginning of a future rich with continued growth, unwavering understanding, and a connection that continues to surprise and define me.